So Sung Kyung Kwan, wake up, don't claim 600 years, but claim 1,000 years and be a rival to Oxford. Annyeonghaseyo, this is Mark Peterson with the Frog Outside the Well Research Center, and today I have a guest you met before. This is Mija.
Hello.
Did you see the video we did on her being an adoptee? So she grew up in America, in Maryland, Arkansas, and Washington, now living in Utah. And as we saw in her previous video, she's very American and very happy as a Korean American. You've been going back to Korea with your Mosaic adoptee group. We talked about that last time. And what strikes you about Korea as you're learning about this culture that's part of you? What kind of questions do you have about it?
I think one of the questions that I have was when I went back in 2018, my host family, their daughter was, I think, like a junior or senior in high school. And she was talking about how she would start her day like at 6:30 in the morning, go to school. She wouldn't get home till like 11 or 11:30 because of academy and all the studying.
Yeah.
And I just thought, what? This is intense, you know? This
Well,
so
yeah,
what is it about
yeah, that's really
education?
interesting. Well, they're backing off of that just a little bit now. This was 2018.
Correct.
Yeah, the Korean contacts tell me now they're backing off from the intensity of it, which is both good and bad. I'm not sure how much they're really backing off. They say they are, but education issues run really deep in Korea, really, really deep. And I think I can tell you about some really interesting things about, because I've been the frog outside the well. I'm looking at these things a little bit differently from how most Koreans will look at it. In fact, I gave a lecture about 3 areas where Koreans are first and best in the whole world. And I put these areas into groups because I think if we look at just one at a time, I first started off to do a top 10 list.
Okay.
And I was going to do metal movable type and ironclad warship and the Tripitaka, the 80,000 wood blocks of the Tripitaka, and all these things. And I thought, no, this isn't a top 10 list. These are separate groups. And I think 3 areas in which Korea really excels. And some Korean YouTubers have found this video and have pirated it. They've played it without my permission, which is fine with me, because anytime they play my lectures, I'm happy about it. But one group got 1 million views off of this lecture. And what it is, I say there are really 3 baskets of excellence in Korea. One is political development. Korea has remarkable political stories, the longest dynasties in the world, smooth transitions between dynasties, development of democracy today out of an autocratic system. That's the one basket. The other basket is technology. Incredible technological development. The first metal movable type, the first ironclad warship, the largest shipyards in the world today. Then, of course, exporting metal cars and computers and phones to America today. So technology is the second basket. The basket I want to talk about that you've raised is education. And I want to put in this basket several things. First is metal movable type. Why have metal movable type? It's for educating people. The 80,000 wood blocks at the Tripitaka, at the Haeinsa temple, 80,000 blocks of wood for printing the Buddhist scripture. It's the most complete set in the world. So Koreans talk about this as being a huge, wonderful thing. Why? To educate people about Buddhism. Not only the 80,000 wood blocks, but the first printing blocks in the world were made in Korea. That is a long wooden block for making a scroll. It's in a long scroll that would roll up that Buddhists would take that with them as a prayer scroll. And the first of one of these was printed in about 750, earliest in the world. Now, the Japanese claim to have the earliest, then the Koreans found theirs. Now Chinese have found theirs that are a little bit older. So, but all 3, they carve it on a wooden block and then print these papers over the wooden block, and every monk in the temple could get their own scroll to take with them when they went on pilgrimages. The first in the world in Korea.
So, Mark, at what age do children start learning about this in history?
Koreans know all about all of these things. They know about the 80,000 wood blocks. They know about the metal movable type and all these sorts of things. The one area that I add as the frog outside the well now is I've been talking lately about the educational system of Korea going back 1,000 years.
Okay.
And I've been saying lately that the pen is mightier than the sword. And I've been comparing Korean politics is based on the pen, whereas like Japanese politics is based on the sword. The Japanese will fight for control of territory. The Koreans for 1,000 years had a centralized government where they'd select people to serve in the government on the basis of not how well they could fight, but how well they could write. So study and success in the world through study goes back 1,000 years. Now, one thing I want to add today that I've been working on is the oldest university in the world. If I say what's the oldest university in the world, you should probably say Oxford.
I should, but since we're doing this, I feel like I should say something in Korean, like I don't know.
The Sungkyunkwan.
Oh.
The Sungkyunkwan. Now, the Chinese actually had an academy that was back earlier than that. But everyone talks about Oxford in the 11th century. 1096, Oxford claims to be the oldest university in the English-speaking world. They recognize, They used to say in the whole world. Now they say the English-speaking world. The Chinese had an academy that goes back probably to the 3rd, 4th century AD. But Korea has a academy, the Sungkyunkwan, that's dates are older than Oxford. Now, Korea is missing the boat on this, which is why the frog outside the well has something to say, and that is that they claim that their Sungkyunkwan is 600 years old. In fact, in 1998, they built a building called the 600 Building, commemorating the 600 years of their university, and I'm very proud of it. But I think they're being myopic because they're only talking about the Sungkyunkwan in the Chosun dynasty in Seoul. But the Sungkyunkwan goes back to Kaesong in the Koryo dynasty. Here are the dates of the oldest university, and they claim a university back in 986, 110 years older than Oxford. Now, they didn't change the name of the academy to the Sungkyunkwan until 1298. That in 98, 1298 they changed it to the Sungyun-gam, and then they changed it in 1308 to the Sungkyunkwan University. But see, that's 1308, and Koreans don't claim credit for the university until 1398 when it moved to Seoul. So here, Korea can claim the oldest university in the world if they, one of the oldest. China can beat them because the Korean system was based on Chinese education. And Chinese don't like the Koreans. The Koreans don't like the Chinese these days. There's some animosity between them. And the Koreans won't want to admit it, but the Koreans did copy the Chinese educational system and the Chinese governmental system for this time. But the point is that this educational system has been in place for over 1,000 years.
Wow, that's impressive.
And it's not only educational, it's political, because they would choose people from this academy to serve in the government, not the people that swung the sword. So I'm saying that the pen is mightier than the sword. In Korea, they say the brush is mightier than the sword. Because traditionally, you're right with the brush. In answer to the question about what's going on with the educational system, why this drive for education that a child would get up at 6 o'clock, not come home, you said till 11:30?
Yeah.
She's cheating. She's coming home early. Most of them come home at midnight. So, but as I say, they've tempered that a bit, and they're making the educational system a little more well-rounded these days with more skill education, more sports education, and making more of a well-rounded person. But the system you described dominated Korea throughout its economic takeoff from the 70s through the 2010s, where Korea's really developed economically. Now they feel they've developed economically, they can relax a little bit on the educational system and on the hours worked. They used to have the highest work hours in the world. People, yeah. because they were behind and they wanted to catch up. And so that's what they've done. The answer to it is this educational system and this very deep-rooted system. So Sungyun Guan, wake up. Don't claim 600 years, but claim 1,000 years and be a rival to Oxford. Yeah. Interesting, huh?
It is.
Yeah.
Well, what I loved when you were sharing some different things about the different baskets and what Korea can be proud of, there were things that you were mentioning, and I thought this goes so much beyond K-pop and Korean food, and it's really exciting to listen to and to learn about.
The culture is really deep. It's really deep. There are a lot of great things about it, and good luck in learning more about it as you go along. It's fun.
I need it, but I'm excited.
Yeah, good for you. Well, that's our bit on education today, and thank my guest, Mija, for coming in. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.